Okay, not sure how live we are yet, but it looks like we might be. Okay, there you go. All right, good morning, everyone. We're going to wait for people to trickle in while we wait for others. We can talk about other things. Let's see here. Um, I'm trying to see how many people are joining. Okay, people are starting to join. We did have a lot of people register for this event, so let's wait and see. If you joined us and you can see us, please say hi in the chat. Hi, Courtney. Hi, Hope. Hello, Giselle. Great to have you all. We'll wait another minute or two before we get started. I'm not able to tell how many are joining here. Yeah, okay. Now I see it. All right. Well, how about if we get started with some introductions here? We'll start with Ken at the top of my screen. Ken, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ken August, and it's good to have you all here. I have August Law Firm, Law Group, which is a transactional boutique that works a lot with startup companies in terms of all of their business and financial transactions. And looking forward to participating today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Kwan?
Hello, thank you, JJ. Hello, everyone out there. My name is Kwan Nguyen. I run a patent law firm. We do a lot of work with startup companies, and we work with venture capitals and angel groups quite a bit, like JJ. So it's good to be here, and hope to be contributive to the program today.
Thank you very much. My name is JJ Risha, and hopefully I've met some of you or all of you, and thank you for all of you for joining. Um, our this is office hours, so you can ask any questions you want, and then we're happy to answer any questions you may have about startups, about how you get your company off the ground, how you raise capital. We can answer a lot of questions about that. We can answer any potential business, corporate, legal questions, and any questions related to patents, copyright, IP protection. Any questions you may have, you can do that. So although it's open, we do have a theme that we kind of or subject that we kind of get started with to kind of get things moving. But you can ask questions along the way. Please don't hesitate to do so. So our topic for the day, suggested by Kwan, is about the investment trends for this for this time of the year. and this economic time as well. And that what are the trends of when it comes to investing in startups? So I'll get started, and Quan and Ken, please, weigh in, chime in anytime. Um, so some of the trends that I'm seeing in the marketplace nowadays is the fact that um, there are the valuations are getting lower and lower. So we see a lot of companies that have been trying to raise money for a long time, and they have dropped their valuations sometimes by as much as 50%. There are some companies that they've been trying to raise some money for the past year or a couple of years, and they've come back to us and they have dropped their valuations drastically. Um, the other things that I'm seeing as well is a lot of companies are um, also trying to raise capital using safes, a lot more safes than convertible notes or equity rounds. I would say the safe, and it would be safe with post money valuation versus or post money versus pre money, or what's called safe version 2, I guess. So that's I'm seeing that quite a bit more, and when we're talking about safes as well, pre money safes are almost out, meaning like nobody's even looking at pre money safes. Um, the last thing I would mention, as far as what I'm seeing trends, and happy to answer any questions the audience have as well, is the last thing is that um, the it is pretty dry out there, and a lot of companies are trying to find ways to raise capitals from any which way they can find it. So it is pretty dry. Although there is money in the marketplace, but investors are holding back and waiting. So um, there
So
you go.
let me ask you a question about that then.
Yeah,
From your investor point of view,
yeah.
um, when a company goes out and does its round of offering at a certain valuation, and then it has to come out and do it at a lower valuation the next time, that's called a down round.
That
And
is correct.
a lot of sophisticated investors are getting what's called down round protection in their documentation with startup companies, which essentially allows them to revalue the original investment that they made at the lower valuation that the next round goes out for, which can substantially dilute early investor participation if that occurs. From an investor point of view, how are investors looking at that situation? If the economy or other factors are causing a down round, are they sympathetic to that, or is it chilling investment in down round offerings?
It is a chilling investment, but sometimes they don't have a choice unless in the documentation in the when they made that investment, there is some kind of a down route protection. But most of the time, there isn't. From my experience, there is no down round protection. So it's they just have to eat it.
But on the other hand, if there is a down round protection, so it will trigger more dilution.
It will trigger.
Is it chilling investment from new investors in the down round that didn't participate the first time?
Yeah, it does. It does do that. But again, it's the name of the game. You really can't do much about it, especially if the companies need the money to continue to survive.
Right.
All right, so we do have some questions. One, let's see, put it up on the screen, and this is from um, Yashar Sayed. We'll say hi all for health tech startups in pre-seed stage and pre-FDA. What are your tips for raising capital? Kwan, maybe you have maybe some insight about that.
Yes. So in the life science world, it's always about proof of concept That's to begin with. There are others. The prototyping and proving that it works is really important. So that's one. The investors want to see that. So what you'd have to do is especially in the life sciences, if you can connect with the clinicals, the universities, folks in that world where you can collaborate with them, or if you are them, then you want to publish papers because that's validation, that's proof of concept. And the other thing is, and this is general, but more so in the health tech world, is that there is actually a need for it. A lot of times, the technology could be one where it's a nice to have, and other times it's a necessity that you need something like this. And the code as well, that there is a reimbursement for this. So it's a business model where you have to prove out that it's not one of these things where people are going to flock, physicians are going to flock to it, or diagnostic clinics and labs are going to flock to it just because it's new. You had to have some indication that people are going to adopt it. And I can tell you also that this practice of large companies swallowing up tech so that they can put it out before it can start competing with them happens quite a bit. So it could be worth it if you want to go into that, meaning that you create a technology, either pharmaceutics or a diagnostic, and a large company sees it as a threat, they can buy it and basically just shove it. And if they pay you enough money and you're happy with that, that's fine. But that's one thing you want to look out for. Anyways, that's not going to the question you're asking. The question you're asking is how to get ready for it. Basically, making sure that you have some convincing evidence that people are going to adopt it. And that you can, I suppose, go get thought leaders in the industry. Or if you, best yet, is if you can actually get some sales, people are actually buying it. All right. So hopefully that'll answer the question.
Thanks, Quan. Uh, Ken, any input?
Yeah, the other thing I would say is particularly if you're talking about pharma or medical device that are going to require lots of trialing. If you're pre-seed or pre-FDA, make sure that the amount of capital that you're going to raise is really sufficient to get the job done. Because too many times I've seen people get halfway across the ocean and they run out of money and they can't make it to the other side. And it's a tendency I've noted, particularly for these types of health startups, to not to just fall short in their analysis of how much capital they're really going to need. And then you put your very precise milestones in there so that you keep a roadway for additional capital coming in as you meet milestones. But don't underestimate what it's going to take you to get there, because it doesn't help you. It's not good for investors, and it can potentially end up in a bad situation.
That's a really really good point, Ken. As well, I think some of the problems that I see when I see companies raising capital, especially for pre FDA or for companies that require FDA approval, is they try to raise way too much money or way too little, and they end up being in trouble. So if you're trying to raise a lot of money up front, trying to cover all bases for many years to come, you're probably not going to get it, because you need to hit milestones. You need to show that you can do what you could do. You need to show some proof of concept, like Juan said. Um, if you try to raise too much, then you're not going to get that money, because the investors are afraid that you may not get there and that they're going to waste their money. If you try to raise too little, then also you're in trouble, because you're not going to have enough money to be able to get there. So you need to break it up into pieces and understand the capital raise strategy, and in order for you to be able to hit those milestones. And first of all, the biggest thing that comes out of this, having a strategy around it, is you'll be able to increase the value of your startup as you're doing it properly and hitting those milestones. And if you don't do it right, you're going to run out of money, and then cash is king. So it is it is art and science at the same time. All right, so here we go. This is
Yeah.
another
Wait,
question.
before we move on, I want to
Yeah.
add a couple of thoughts to it. So, especially if you're at a pre-seed stage, you want to look into the SBIRs, the non-dilutive grants, because those things are very, very helpful, especially if you're trying to do prototyping. They're good for those sort of stuff. Now, when you apply for the SBIRs and the non-dilutive grants and things like that, they typically ask for patents as well. So yes, do file a patent application for that purpose, but at the same time also is don't forget the patents, because what happens with investors is that they look at the company and they look at its totality at the very beginning, especially pre-seed. There's nothing, there's no prototype, there's no inventory, there's no sales, nothing. Really, the only thing you have at that point are the patents. Basically your IP portfolio, and it's worth something. So those two things, make sure that you look into as you are at the pre-seed stage, looking into investment, but also look into the non-dilutive fundings from the grants.
Excellent, especially because pharma, med device, etc. You're going to need a lot of money, and the more non-dilutive, the better, and that's what also investors are looking for, because they love non-dilutive capital that could be part of this. Um, a, maybe Ken, maybe you can touch a little bit on qualified small business stock that could help here, if that's something that you think would be relevant.
Well, yeah, qualified small business stock is a methodology that investors can use. Companies will issue shares that are qualified according to the IRS code, and if investors end up losing capital because of an investment in qualified business stock, they can take the deduction for that, which is very helpful.
Right. Okay. And also the no capital gain uh, uh, for 10 million and below as well. The investors don't pay, and the startups
Yep.
don't pay as
Yep.
well. Okay. Next question we have here from Franz, basically asking about what we would be excited about when it comes to climate investing. Anyone wants to start with that?
Well, one of the things that's interesting about climate investing is that, as you were saying, JJ, if you can leverage non-dilutive financing along with the rounds of dilutive financing that a company is issuing, it can help to strengthen and be more attractive for investors. And so, particularly in the context of climate investing, I've seen recently numerous grants that are being made available, whether it's by governments or municipalities, cities. Over in Europe, there are tons of grants, and a grant against a project is not going to be diluted, because they don't take equity back in the project, but it just makes capital available, and it leverages the equity that you are issuing. So I'm excited about that for a lot of climate.
Yeah, I would say that when it comes to climate, because it's a big buzz out there, everybody talking about the climate. I think the most important thing when it comes to investors, and I do see a lot of climate companies trying to raise capital nowadays, um, it's really having a real solution. I mean, if you come today to investors and talk about a solar energy or a solar product, no one's going to be interested in this unless you have something that's hugely disruptive to the solar energy market, because now solar's been around for a very long time. This is just an example. So when it comes to climate, you need to have a real solution that really creates a disruptive, uh, you know, a disruption to the marketplace when it comes to climate. Otherwise, it's just another solution that could potentially make a small difference when it comes to existing solutions in the marketplace, and these small changes are not of interest to investors in general.
Well, and I think to your point, JJ, it's important to make sure that whatever business plan that you're promoting to investors is actually a business that can generate capital. Because I think sometimes these words, whether it's climate, whether it's AI, people will throw those into their proposals, thinking that that in and of itself is going to generate the investment, and it can't. It's got to really stand up to scrutiny from a business and financial ROI perspective.
Absolutely correct. Quan, any input there?
Yeah. So I looked at the company Race Green. Thank you for the person who asked the question. I don't know
Yeah.
on all the executives here.
So
So
you're not just chatting with people. Well, okay, fine.
no, I'm behaving myself. I'm trying not to boast. Behaving. It looks like it's a crowdfunding platform. I don't know, and forgive me if I'm wrong. It says here that as with little as $100 you can invest. So that sounds to me like it is a crowdfunding. For investors, there could be investors who are out there to make money, and there could be investors for $100. It's just doing good for the environment and so on and so forth. So I guess to raise money, there has to be a message, and I take it that you have a website because you do have a message out there somewhere. But what I wanted to do is to ask Ken about the whole crowdfunding, the pros and cons of crowdfunding. So there are Kickstarters and so on and so forth. How does all of that play into the whole spectrum of investment? So there is crowdfunding, there's angel investment, there's venture capital. If one goes first with crowdfunding, how is that going to or not going to complicate investments of angel investment and VCs down the road? Could you speak to that a little bit, Ken?
So, okay, go ahead, Ken.
Go ahead, JJ.
No, I was just gonna say something very quickly. I'm glad you looked that up, Quan. But so crowdfunding for climate, um, we're seeing a lot of those, and so I probably saw 3 last week, just on a crowdfunding for a specific. So it could be for solar, which is one of the ones I saw. Could be for other. So it's a slice of the pie. Instead of investing, you know, a lot of money into it, you invest $100 or whatever, and they promise some kind of a return. Some of them, but they do require it to be FINRA compliant, and there's a lot of things SEC compliance that needs to be part of this. But the way, and I don't know how what this company is doing, but mostly basically they're a two-sided marketplace looking for investors from one side, not necessarily investors that are accredited, because you could spend $100 or $1,000 or whatever. And then you need the other side, which is someone who's looking for the investment, and they make a loan towards that for the ones who are looking for the money. But I just wanted to make the point that I'm seeing a lot of those lately. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're exactly right, JJ. And the thing to remember is that these are platforms, and not all of them are equal. So you have to be very careful before I would have a client go into a crowdfunding situation. I would want to vet that crowdfunder very carefully to make sure that they are compliant with the SEC and other state securities regulations that apply to the issuance of equity anyway, and also that you don't actually have somebody operating as an exchange that hasn't been registered to operate as an exchange, because you may end up just buying a lawsuit or having to rescind all the cash that you get if the people operating the platform are not doing it correctly. Not to say anything about this person who asked the question. I haven't looked at this platform at all, and I would never suggest that it's not correct. But you do want to make sure, as a participant that's going in to benefit from the use of the platform, that they have the infrastructure set up so that they're operating wholly within federal and state securities requirements.
All right. So France did put up a note saying that it is already a FINRA and SEC registered funding portal.
Perfect. That's great.
Also, he said, please note the difference between crowdfunding investing that is regulated by the SEC, like raise green versus donation-based crowdfunding. Yes, definitely we know the difference between that. So it's equity crowdfunding versus non-equity crowdfunding. Thanks, friends. We have other questions, so let's get to those.
Oh, but before we move on, though,
Oh,
can you speak to the implications of how the crowdfunding fits into either complicating or not complicating angel investment and other forms of investment later on? That's how it
yes.
plays. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as long as there aren't promises made in the purchase of securities that are going to be a problem for investors down the road. For example, that they would never lose their percentage that they bought in on. I don't see it as an issue. It's seed capital, just like any other seed capital. It's a slice of the pie. And the more you get into sophisticated higher raises with VCs and other institutional investors, the more they'll sort of recap the company the way they need it to be going forward. But I don't see it as a particular problem.
JJ, you don't see any pushback in terms of the angels or the VCs coming in later saying that the cap table is just way, way, way too massive, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and becoming a problem?
This is a so if a company is looking to raise capital through a crowdfunding platform, um, and and it's different. I think this is a little bit different, but like WeFunder trying to companies trying to raise capital through a platform like WeFunder. So with WeFunder, they're just raising capital for companies. In this case, it sounds like it's different, but let's talk about the WeFunder effect. So with the WeFunder type, I guess some of the investors, angel groups, VCs, sometimes they end up shying away from companies that raise capital through equity crowdfunding platforms like WeFunder, because you end up with investors that are investing small amounts, hundreds of dollars, maybe thousands of dollars. They're not accredited, and they don't understand how the risks that's associated with investing. And so the VCs and the angels and the professional investors, they end up shying away from investing in these companies, mainly for the reasons that they're afraid that there's, first of all, the cap table is really large, although sometimes it's kind of grouped into smaller, smaller sections because they could be part of an SPV or some other mechanism, but they're afraid that they will get into lawsuits because the investors are or the equity crowdfunding investors, they're not sophisticated, and their expectation of on the returns to their money may not be realistic, and therefore they're afraid that they get into lawsuits, and then that's why they end up not the more professional investors end up not investing in these types of investments. So that's kind of a general. We can get into more deep into this, but let's answer some more questions for now. um, my biggest issue is finding true pre-seed investors. Investors are now asking for MVP and revenue, even at this stage. What are the tips for finding these? Well, I'll start. I'll start by saying it's more. It's more. I mean, you can't be an idea. I mean, if you're talking about to true pre-seed, and you got up on Monday, figured out an idea, and then you say, okay, I'm starting company on Wednesday. I need pre-seed investors. You're not going to get them. So you need to have something. One, I could tell you is, one of the things that we have at Pismo Ventures. Also, I belong to Tecos Angels. We're looking for at least uh, founders that are fully committed, meaning you're working full time on this, and it's not a side gig, and you're doing it whenever you have time. But when you get all the money, then you'll be able to build the business. You need to have a lot more commitment. You have to have some traction. Yes, I mean, talking about MVP, I mean, if you're developing, let's say, for example, some kind of a software or an app or something. I mean, if you don't have any money at all, you can't spend $50,000 on something. Maybe you should go find $50,000 to do it, because you need to have something. It can't be just an idea. So, an MVP, nowadays, you can develop a prototype for an app, maybe 20 grand. If you haven't, you need to go and have some savings and start it, and have some other people that believe in what you're doing, meaning you find other co-founders that can do this. Maybe if you're not a technical co-founder, you find technical co-founders that could do this, and you could do this. You could spend time on the side for a few months, 6 months, to build something that could show. And again, I give up the software idea or an app, but it could be anything that you're doing, that you spend a few months on the side, and then you could show some traction, some demand, something that shows the investors that there is something here and not just an idea. I'll leave it up to Ken and Kwan to chime in.
Yeah, I'll go next. So, doing a startup with a tech, with an app, it's no different from opening up a hot dog stand or a restaurant or a barbershop or anything like that. You need capital. You got to get those furnitures. You got to get the forks, the plates, and stuff like that. So it's very much the same for startups. How are you going to do it over there? You're going to open up a restaurant or a hot dog stand or a barbershop. Well, a lot of times, and there's a saying that you get it from friends and families and fools, but primarily from friends and families who believe in you, and would just do that. I mean, there's this one story of a company who is now, that company is wildly successful. The guy started out, just scraping, driving Uber, just to make ends meet. And then while he was driving Uber, he would be talking to people about his company. And then he had this one lady that he was talking to, and she became his first investor. And boom, now it's a $200 million company. I mean, it's within 4 years. It's incredible. So it just takes a lot of grinding and a lot of grit. And that's basically what it is. So there's no shortcut to it. Ken?
So the friends and family is really the true pre-seed investor group. But the other thing is that, as you said, if you can elicit technical help or business help from people in industry that have an interest in the idea, don't discount the value of that. That's also something that goes in. But the one thing that you have to remember is, if you give them equity for providing services, it's treated for tax purposes just like if you gave them cash. And so you're going to end up, the recipient is going to pay wage income, and you're going to have to pay the employer side of wage income. So make sure you talk with your CPA very carefully about that before you start giving people sweat equity for coming in to help build the business.
Well, there's a lot more to that when it comes to how you structure that legally as well, and with stock options and many other ways to do this. So warrants, etc. So definitely you'd need to talk to Ken about that when it comes to the legal side of it. Okay, we'll take the next question from Hope. Do you have any tips on applying for the FAST program? That's a state precursor. All 50 states have it, to SBIR. I need to demonstrate viability or something. I've tried twice and can't get FAST grant, which bodes ill for SBIR. I am not familiar with FAST. Are you familiar with it, Ken or Kwan?
No, I'm familiar with SBIR, but I'm not familiar with FAST specifically.
I am not. Hope, I'm sorry, but I can tell you what. Please reach out to me. You have my email here, and I'd be happy to look into it and get you connected with anyone that has connections. If we don't, all three of us don't know, I could tell you we'll figure it out in a couple of hours. So
Yeah, yeah.
please reach out to us. Yeah, thanks.
So on that note,
Yeah.
JJ, Bill Waldo comes to mind because he works over at the SBIR along that line of work, and I'm sure he'll be a great resource for FAST. Bill Waldo. I don't know where our audience, this person region is from, but
They're really all over the place. Yeah, so they're not just here. Yeah.
right.
Uh, okay, so let's see. Next one is what is the best way to coordinate investor syndications? All right. I can. I mean, I can start with this. So usually, so this is a really big question. One is you need to know investors and lots of them, and in order to be able to syndicate. So and one of the things that we do is really investor syndications as Pismo Ventures, because we have a huge network of investors, uh, belong to different angel groups, and we're able and VCs, and we're able to put them all together. You could do it on your own. It's going to take you a very long time to go find all these investors and coordinate between all of them and syndicate. So there's a lot of work that's involved in that. It's doable. There's nothing that no one can do. It's just, will it take you 6 months or 6 years? It's up to you. So so you can coordinate, but you need someone to help you with the coordination. Sometimes you need a lead investor, and then you can start going out to other investors and see if they want to syndicate or to be part of whatever round you're trying to do. Again, but you need to start with one and having a lead investor first before you start syndicating. Some groups, they just do follow on or syndicate, they do not lead deals. So they would ask you to go find a lead investor first before they start syndicating. Ken?
Well, the other common method is to work with an investment bank that puts these syndications together. Private placement brokers, other FINRA licensed brokers that will, for a commission on the syndication, will put groups together like that.
Yeah, I'll add one quick thing to that. The what Ken said is very important. The major difference between is really how much you're trying to raise. So most of the ones that, if you're trying to raise less than 5 million in general, I'm just talking in generality, an investment banker may not work with you because they want 5 million and up. If you're trying to raise less than five in general, you may not be able to do that through an investment banker. Kwan, any input?
Well, the only thing I'd probably say is that investment is a trust game. There has to be a trust that runs between the company and the investor. So to begin to syndicate, to coordinate any of this, I think the best advice I can have is go to an investor that you trust or can build a trust with, and where they trust you, and from there, then that investor can begin to be an ambassador or an advocate for you amongst other investors, and that could really accelerate the system. Trying to do it by yourself, like JJ said, is really, really difficult because trust takes time, and if you can gain one person's trust and leverage that one person's trust already within their network, it goes a little faster.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. It takes a long time to do that, but also these investors, you know, they have to love you, and then they're gonna start introduce you. But that's not what they do for a living. They're investors,
Right.
and so they're not gonna spend all their time trying to go out and find you investors that will syndicate. So I think eventually you need to find some help somewhere that will accelerate that process.
Yeah.
All right, we'll go to the next one. Do you see AI tech startup investments growing for the life science industry, or cooling down in 2024? Okay, I'll start. I'll start with that. Uh, Not only for the life sciences, but I think for the next few years, uh, you know, it's never going to stop. It's going to grow. It's not slowing down whatsoever, not cooling down. Um, the on the life sciences part of it, there's a lot of opportunities there. Uh, I could tell you in the past maybe year or so, I probably saw probably 30 companies doing AI for imaging only. So imagine just that specific part of it. So and I've seen a lot more when it comes to other life sciences, of course, to many other industries as well. But in life sciences, just analyzing, diagnosing images has been a really, really big the past year, at least from what I've seen. Any input?
No, I would agree with that, JJ. I think it's all about the progress of the technology of AI, and so many companies right now are just looking at how to create innovative applications and put AI to its best use. And as that continues to happen, companies are going to be rolling out and looking for investment in that area.
That's true. I would add one more thing, and that is it has to be through AI, because I could tell you from what I've been seeing, and we see a lot of companies. I'm gonna say 90% of them, they have nothing to do with AI. They just say AI just for. This is just like, from maybe 20 some years ago or so, wherever you add internet to it and then everybody's good, and now you add AI to it and everybody's think that they'll get money by adding AI. Quan?
Yeah, I totally agree that the investment into AI is just going to increase. It's FOMO, fear of missing out, kind of deal. So the companies they want to have it in there because they're FOMO. The investors are not going to come in, and then the investors are saying, well, this is a hot area. Yeah, there's a lot of fish in there, and I don't know which fish is going to actually bite, but I'm going to throw a line in there, and hopefully I'll get a good one, kind of deal. So people are blindly, investors, I can tell you, they're blindly throwing money at AI. And I can tell you, especially in the pharma industry, the drug discovery and diagnosing and in the diagnostic and the pharma industry, AI is huge because biology is complicated. It's very, very just complex, and there's no logic to it. Just things just happen, and so you have to find patterns. And the only way to find pattern, technology-wise, is to use AI. And so the investors are pretty much the solution. So to answer your question, yes, it's going to go up. I'm not coming down anytime soon.
Okay, Kwan, stay on the screen. Here's one for you. Follow up on legal, and how will AI affect legal aspects of IP, such as patents, if the AI model is responsible for creating the IP?
Yeah,
That's the question.
sure. Yeah. So there's this case. It's the inventor Stephen Thaler. Stephen Thaler he's a physicist. He created this company. I'm sorry. He created this AI system called Dabus, DABUS, and he partnered with a patent attorney who's also a physician and who's also a PhD. But he partnered with a patent attorney to file this application with the United States Patent and Trademark Office, and then patent offices all over the world as well. And it came in, and he listed Dabus, which is the name of the system, the AI system, as an inventor. And the United States and everybody else across the world rejected it because it is not a human inventor. So that's where we are with it. Whether it was or wasn't human contributed and things like that, that's basically the question. Did AI create this? So where do you draw the line? It is still an academic question. For the most part, though, in a practical sense, the patent offices across the world do not believe that an AI is at the point of autonomously creating IP yet. So that's just an opinion. You can go one way or the other, but that's where things are. So if you are going to use AI to create or to help create inventions, you want to talk to your patent attorney to be very, very careful about the emphasis of the human role into all of this because of the state of inventorship being human requirement as we are today. I mean, there are some that are pushing for AI to be the named inventor as much as a human is. We don't know where that's going to go. So it is still an open question. But for today's purposes, if you're going to use AI to patent things, it's a matter of the presentation of making it convincing that the human was involved in the process. And we do a fair amount of this. So feel free to reach out. My email address is on there. Feel free to reach out if you want a deeper conversation.
A couple more questions there you want to address on the screen still.
Yeah, does it go to a person who created? Okay, I answered that. The person who used which person who used the model, or does the model itself get awarded by IP? Yeah, so basically, again, is does the IP go to the AI system as an inventor or the human as inventor? Right now, it is the human. There is no jurisdiction anywhere in the world that accepts an AI system as an inventor. So the way to handle that is to make sure that you create a compelling case in your patent application that this is a human creation, not an AI. An AI could be used as a tool, that's perfectly fine, but it comes down to conception of the idea, and that's a whole academic question altogether. So I hope that answered the question.
Thank you. Yeah, please reach out to Quan. That's his email on the screen. Um, Next question. Thank you for your insight. Software as a medical device. We have prepared the business model by taking customers and gadgets clear need. Okay, so it's not a question. Sorry, but
Yeah, it's a follow-on from the first question that you took.
yeah, it is a follow-on. Yeah, and this is a follow-on. Even under safe, I'm not sure what you're referring to. I guess. Here, or maybe he's referring back to your comment about maybe giving up equity. Yeah, it would be still regardless. So regardless if it's a safe or whatever it may be, I don't know. Maybe Rami, if you want to clarify what you mean, please ask your question. Um, okay. Let's see. Next question. Okay, here we go. You mean just plastering? Yeah, plastering AI all over your deck. We'll just do it. That's it.
Yeah.
um,
A thought on that is that nowadays you have investors who are fairly sophisticated in the language of AI, and so it's all about credibility and building that trust. So if a company were to plaster AI, they should really know what AI they're talking about to back it up. Otherwise, credibility is going to crumble.
yep. Yeah. Exactly. Okay. We have a question from Mary. Can you promote the company as AI validated, i.e., AI supports that your company is addressing an unmet need? Uh, the short question, short answer is yes, you can, as long as you can validate it. So
I think what you would have to do, JJ, is give attribution to whoever's AI solution you used to arrive at that validation.
yeah, okay, that's true.
So let me share a story with you. I was talking to a friend of mine, and she travels a lot. We're looking to traveling as well, and so I was asking her, "Do you use travel agency or what?" She says, "No, she uses GPT, and it spits out. She would tell them what she wants to do and where she wants to go, and it would actually spit out a very nice table. It's so impressive, and she loves it, absolutely loves it. So it is good there. I've also seen situations where, in this particular case, for example, there are companies right now that are trying to have an AI system draft patent applications and draft patent claims and things like that. I look at it and it is hallucinating. It makes no sense whatsoever. So, it's one of these things where, okay, just saying AI, well, the ones in the know would say, well, yeah, okay, it might work, it might not work. So the bottom line is, in terms of being AI validated, there's going to be credibility as well. What source, like Ken said, does the system work, and you can back it up, and so on and so forth. Just saying that AI told me so, or ChatGPT told me so, is not going to fly. It's got to be backed up with some believability. So that's where I would put it.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with that. And yeah, I don't think I have anything to add here, but except for you, Quan, no one's going to put you out of business. It sounds like so. You're good. Okay, so Rami
Oh, JJ,
clarified.
I am actually part of this company. I'm consulting for them. I'm trying to get the company to the point where they can actually write decent patent applications. There is a business model for it, but it is hard. It is not a trivial matter because writing language in itself and expressing idea without hallucinating is hard enough, but this is claim patent language, which is esoteric altogether. But now that AI is very good for writing codings, that it is very good, and I've heard lots of good feedback that the codes that ChatGPT provides is very professional.
I mean, it does work to some extent. Yeah, for generic stuff, it's going to be fine. It could save you literally hours. But when you're trying to build something that's very custom specific to your needs, it's going to stop there. But it could do a lot of work, saving some time. I think Ken, this is
Yeah,
back to you. Yeah.
I think that what Rami is referring to is what I mentioned earlier, that if you pay people in stock for performing services for the company,
Yep.
then it's treated the same as if you hired them and paid them in cash under the tax laws. But a SAFE is not an employment agreement. A SAFE is an investment contract. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect it to be characterized in the same manner unless there was something specific in the SAFE that provided for the investor to actually be undertaking services for the benefit of the company, and for which services the investor was being paid. But that's not standard, and I've never seen that in any SAFE document I've looked at.
Yep. Going back to AI, I attended a conference a couple of weeks ago, and I think one of the things that made a lot of sense to me, and that is AI initially is going to it's going to eliminate a lot of jobs and replace, and just like any other you know uh, you know time in the past where new technology replaced and eliminated jobs, but new jobs will be created. But what was interesting is that the speaker talked about it's gonna really attack uh, jobs that you wouldn't think they would be attacked for. So initially, one of the things that they're going after is potentially the jobs that make a lot of money, which is doctors. So AI is going to potentially replace your primary care physician or your imaging doctor, because they could potentially do a better job than the radiologist. That's because they could take a look at all these images, provide solutions. What it's not going to replace is your plumber, your electrician. Those are going to stay around because you need someone to touch something to do something. And so they were talking about really the fact that AI is going to hit some of the areas that people don't expect. But some areas like blue collar type jobs, they probably won't get affected. Um, this is a comment. Yeah, I agree with you, Brandon. You know, a lot of people confuse automation with AI and predictive stuff, and this is, yes, it's not the case.
So
Um,
let me comment on that. I've been looking quite a bit into this. So I am with that school of thought. So is it automation or is it autonomy, right? For those things, and you've got the of AI, Hinton, for example. He was with Google for a while there, and then now he resigned so that he can speak more freely about AI. And he says things like, AI can think, and so on and so forth. So who knows, right? Who knows? But I can tell you, at the present time, I really believe that it is an analytical tool, a very powerful one, and it is automation as opposed to autonomy. But who knows in the future? Right. So that's my 2 cents.
there you go. I keep forgetting to switch people back on the screen, so I'll get used to it. But this is for you, Kwan, and Yashar. I think you should reach out to Kwan, and he'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. But Kwan, go ahead.
All right. For patents transfer agreements, negotiations with universities, are there any terms that we should avoid since it would throw off future investors? Actually, more for Ken and JJ as well. So universities vary across the country. and the continent as well. So I can tell you as an example, Waterloo in Canada, they take nothing. Here's our IP, they just throw it out there, and the community embrace it, and they've done really well. It is an incredible system up in Waterloo where the university takes nothing. You move south a little bit to Harvard, they take an arm and a leg, a big chunk of equity, and
It's the
lots.
name. It's the name.
Yeah. So for that, so I have colleagues and folks working over there, and it's like, well, so how are investors interacting with? How do you find investors for these startups and technologies? Well, it's almost like a bakery store that is so hot that the folks would line up at 4 a.m. in the morning when it opens at 6 a.m. or 8 a.m. Investors would line up at the laboratories waiting for the new hottest thing that rolls out, and they would just snatch it up and dump lots of money into it. And so there's no problem there. And then you get to the other spectrum of it where they're struggling. I mean, universities are struggling, and they would give you a good deal for 4%. So generally, the bulk of it is this. So I spoke about the two extremes where you have the Waterloo model, and then you have the more extreme level where the universities grab a lot of equity and royalty. For the main of the road part, they take about 4 or 5% or so in terms of royalty of the product that reads on or relates to the patent that you license out from them. Some universities may take an equity position, and I think that's fair. And the reason is that who knows what's going to happen to the IP and so on and so forth. So they take an equity position in the event that the patents lapse, the patents discontinue, the patent is not continued anymore. They still have an equity position in the company should the company go on and not license anymore. The university still has a good interest in the company. So I think that's totally fair. So with that, does it impact the future investors? If you really think about it, a lot of the technologies that are successful today go out from universities, and investors, most of them, I'd say some do care, but most of them don't care that it's actually originating from university, and the university still has tethering to it, because it's just a good technology, and at 4% royalty, it's not that big of a deal. And universities in general, they would like to have some revenue. Universities put so much money and resources into getting the technology from the professors patented and things like that. For the most part, they don't make a lot of money, and they'd be happy if they can make money. The purpose of university is to educate. And if they can, on the side, make some money along with their IP, that'd be great. But so what I'm leading up to is that it's all flexible. They would love to have a revenue, a royalty coming from the technology that they've licensed out. If it becomes a roadblock for future investors, if the university license become a roadblock, you can always go back to the university and have a negotiation and have amendments and say, university, this is where we are. Google's about to buy this, whatever it is. Can we renegotiate for the term if that's doable? So it's a win-win situation, right? So that's my answer to that. I hope it makes sense.
Yeah, Ken, if you have anything, just we're almost out of time.
Sure. Just very quickly, for me, university transfers are not typically the problem. Where I do see companies get trapped sometimes is if a startup takes funding from a governmental organization or a laboratory, and they don't realize that in the documentation where they're receiving that funding, they're actually giving up a partial ownership of their IP, and they may be restricted from getting that back. You have to be very careful when you look at those types of funding proposals and contracts. But a typical CRADA or tech transfer document with a university is probably not going to be an issue.
All right. Well, thank you all very much. Let's end this by giving each one of us giving maybe one advice to the audience today. We had a lot today join us. How about if we give them one advice very quickly? Kwan?
Sure. So our theme today is trends in investment. Grit is the word for of the day for me because things are getting rough. Money's getting dry. You just gotta have heart and grit to get through this.
Thank you, Kwan, very much. Please reach out to Kwan for any IP related questions. That's intellectual property related questions. Ken?
Yeah, I guess my advice in terms of going into investor um, discussions is make sure that you really know your company better than anybody else that's going to read your documents and know it and analyze it. If you're providing some sort of a scientific solution, make sure that you understand the science and you can explain it. If you're putting up due diligence for investors, make sure that that due diligence tracks everything that you've said to them or that you will say to them in offering the securities. Because a lot of times we've seen investors come back and just show companies that they really misstated something or didn't understand what they were doing, and that can really weaken the negotiation for investment.
Ken, thank you. Again, audience, please reach out to Ken for any corporate legal questions that you may have. My advice would be to be focused. The more focused you are, the better. The more narrow your solution is, meaning the more it is going after a very specific niche market, the better. Most entrepreneurs think that the more they could serve, the better. But it's the more niche you are, that's what investors are looking for, where you can actually make a difference in a specific industry. Thank you all very much for being part of this. We're going to try to do this every month, so please join us next month. And happy holidays and happy New Year to everyone.
Yes.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye
Bye-bye.
bye.